Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'll be reading Kabbalah Secrets Christians Need to Know, an in-depth study of the Kosher pig and the gods of Jewish mysticism by Deanne Loper. And we will be starting in chapter 3, Prophecy, Creation, and the Gods of Kabbalah. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Either make the tree good and its fruit good, or else make the tree corrupt and its fruit corrupt. For the tree is known by his fruit. Matthew chapter 7, verse 18, chapter 12, verse 33. Isaac Luria, father of modern Kabbalah. Yitzhak Shapira is not the only rabbi or pastor disseminating Kabbalistic doctrines into the church today. There are many. Even the use of the title rabbi should raise an alarm, as Jesus told his followers not to be called rabbi. Matthew chapter 23, verse 8. All things must be tested in the light of the Bible. Sadly, many Christians today are not looking past the veneer of impressive words that sound like truth. Instead, they are placing themselves under the bewitchment of Kabbalah veiled in so-called Judaism. Based on a prophecy in the Zohar, there is a very definite and planned effort to bring the entire world into the study of Kabbalah as a necessary precursor that will usher in a false Messiah. This is why the true followers of Jesus Christ must be able to recognize basic terms and teachings as defined by the rabbis of Kabbalah. Of all the rabbis referenced in Shapira's book, none has been more influential in the history and development of Kabbalah than Isaac Luria, also known as the Ari, or the Lion. Born in Jerusalem in 1534, he was and is still known by his disciples as the Master Kabbalist. His method of Kabbalah, Lurianic Kabbalah, continues to be the predominant form of Kabbalah followed by the rabbis today, as confirmed by Shapira. Rabbi Yitzhak Luria, who was the founding rabbi of the Pards method. Many considered him the founder of the Torah of Kabbalah. He is considered the father of contemporary Kabbalah. This brief description of Isaac Luria from the return of the kosher pig as the founder of the mystical Pards method and father of contemporary Kabbalah lends itself to further explanation, but Shapira gives us none. Therefore, I present the following excerpt on Isaac Luria from Kabbalah Online, which publishes Kosher Kabbalah from the holy city of Safed, Israel, where Luria spent the last years of his life and died. One of the greatest Kabbalists of all times, he founded a new school in Kabbalah, the so-called Lurianic Kabbalah, which is the basis of almost all mystical works that followed him. Undisputedly, the greatest practitioner and expounder of Kabbalah since Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, author of the Zohar. On numerous occasions, Elijah, the prophet, revealed himself and taught the Ari the mysteries of the Torah. Every night his soul ascended into the heavenly realms. Troops of angels would greet him to safeguard his way, bringing him to the heavenly academies. These angels would ask him which academy he chose to visit. Excuse me, my throat's getting dry. Sometimes it would be that of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, and other times he would visit the heavenly academies of Rabbi Akiva or Rabbi Eleazar the Great. On occasion, he would also visit the heavenly academies of the ancient prophets in 5330, 1570, after he had attained an extremely exalted rung of holiness in Egypt. Elijah told him the time had come to move to Safed, a city in the Galilee in the north of Israel. Then he would meet Rabbi Chaim Vital, the man to whom he was destined to transmit the keys to the ancient knowledge. The Ari overflowed with Torah. He was thoroughly expert in scripture, Mishnah, Talmud, and Ma'aseh Merkava, esoteric disciplines. He was expert in the language of trees, the language of birds, and the speech of angels. He could read faces in the manner outlined in the Zohar, Volume 2, page 74b. He could discern all that any individual had done and could see what they would do in the future. He could read people's thoughts. Often before the thought even entered their mind, He knew future events and was aware of everything happening here on earth and what was decreed in heaven. He knew the mysteries of Gilgul, reincarnation, who had been born previously and who was here for the first time. He could look at a person and tell him how he was connected to higher spiritual levels and his original root in Adam. The Ari could read wondrous things about people in the light of a candle or in the flame of a fire. With his eyes he gazed and was able to see the souls of the righteous, both those who had died recently and those who had lived in ancient times. Together with and from these departed souls he studied the true mysteries. From a person sent, he was able to know all that he had done. See Zohar, Volume 3, page 188a. It was as if the answers to all these mysteries lay dormant within him, waiting to be activated whenever he desired. He did not have to seclude himself to seek them out. All this we saw with our own eyes. These are not things that we heard from others. They were wondrous things that had not been seen on earth since the time of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. None of this was attained through magic. Heaven forbid. There was a strong prohibition against these arts. Instead, it came automatically as a result of his saintliness and asceticism after many years of study in both the ancient and the newer Kabbalistic texts. He then increased his piety, asceticism, purity, and holiness until he reached a level where Elijah would constantly reveal himself to him, speaking to him mouth to mouth, teaching him these secrets. From the account of Luria's life, we can get a pretty clear idea of how a future Mashiach of Kabbalah might appear, complete with Elijah, the false prophet, as his forerunner. In this case, a familiar spirit. In fact, another authoritative source notes that certain allusions made to his disciples suggest that he, Luria, believed himself to be the Messiah, the son of Joseph, destined to die in the fulfillment of his mission. Like Simon the sorcerer in Acts chapter 8, Luria's ability to perform signs and wonders greatly impressed his contemporaries, and his teachings continue to influence the followers of Kabbalah today. The Kabbalah Sephirot tree of knowledge and its roots. As seen in The Return of the Kosher Pig, Yitzhak Shapira has provided extensive references to the heavenly journeys of the rabbis by way of mystical meditation and angelic encounters that result in strong delusion. On page 206, he has included an illustration of the Sephirot tree. Kabbalah. The Sephirot tree is referred to interchangeably as the tree of life and the tree of knowledge of good and evil. It is the bridge connecting heaven and earth and represents man's ascent by degrees of knowledge back to the paradise that was lost and ultimately to his own divinity before the fall. Shapira refers to the Sephirot tree of knowledge and its relation to Yeshua multiple times in his book, describing the role of Messiah as the last Redeemer. He states, "He will serve as a connector between the heavens and the earth by the spark of life," page 205. Quoting again from mystical Jewish sources, Shapira then attempts to show that the female sphere of Binah on the Sephirot tree is a manifestation of Yeshua, the Son of God. In his explanation of the 10 Sephirot as the 10 manifestations of God, Shapira states the following: the left side of the 10 manifestations represents the feminine attributes, while the right side represents the masculine attributes. The feminine manifestation of God represents the part of God that we can see and remain alive. Hashem reduced himself to the middle point or middle pillar during creation. Amazingly, the middle pillar is referred to as the Messiah himself as the Binah, or the Son of Yah. The responsibility of the middle pillar, the mediator, is to join heaven and earth together, called in Judaism connection of the worlds. The last Redeemer is known as the Binah, the Son of God, Elyon, the one from above, the firstborn, and as a bull. Contrast these statements of Shapiro with those of 33rd degree Freemason and occultist Manly P. Hall. The Sephirothic tree consists of 10 globes of luminous splendor arranged in 3 vertical columns and connected by 22 channels or paths, analogous to the first 32 degrees of Freemasonry, which elevate the candidate to the dignity of a prince of the royal secret. Aima, the Great Mother, is the name by which Binah, or the third Sephirah, is generally known, according to the mysteries of the Sephirot, the order of the creation, from Ein Sof, the nothing, and all, Ein Sof, corresponding to Keter, the crown of the Sephirot, gives birth out of himself to the 9 lesser spheres. From this eternal and ancient androgen Keter come forth Chokmah, the great father, and Binah, the great mother, the first male and the first female, the prototypes of sex. As a master mason and mystic, Manly Hall understood the secret teachings of Kabbalah, revealing in riddles those mysteries related to cosmology, the origin of the universe, and the God, little g, who rules from the top of the Sephirot tree, Ein Sof. In Kabbalah, the concepts of creation, the fall of man, redemption, and especially the coming Messiah are vastly different from the biblical view, and Shapiro introduces his readers to many of these cryptic ideas. Based on his wide scope of rabbinical knowledge, Shapiro must also know the diametrical opposites of Christianity and Kabbalah. Therefore, whatever connection he is trying to make between Jesus Christ and the Messiah of Kabbalah are simply not there. According to the Zohar, the main book of Kabbalah, the God, little g, who created the universe is not the God Elohim of Genesis chapter 1, verse 26, but Ein Sof, an infinite, formless, unknowable force. Ein Sof, also spelled Ainsoph, may be defined as the supreme deity, the eternal state of being, the absolute, not being, without substance, essence, or intelligence, the most ancient of all ancients. In the Genesis account of creation, Elohim is the creator, but in Kabbalistic theology, Ein Sof is the creator of Elohim. So there's a diagram, but I don't have any way to show it to you. So you'll just have to look it up. It's like a circle, and above it, it says Ein Sof. In a line, it says engravings and mystery. And on the left side of the circle, it says the hidden decrees of God. And to the right, it says the will of God. Yeah, I am. And then in the circle, it says Keter, which means crown, kingship in Hebrew. The Zohar's account of Ein Sof creating Elohim. Now the pillars stand firm, the blinding flash, the creation of Elohim. This is the Zohar's name for the first impulse of emanation proceeding from Ein Sof, the infinite, through Keter, one spark. A pure aura emerged from Keter, the aura of Ein Sof, the creation of Elohim, Rabbah Zohar 3, 128b. Because that, when they knew God, they glorified him not as God. Professing themselves to be wise, they became fools who changed the truth of God into a lie and worshipped and served the creature more than the Creator. Romans chapter 1, verse 21, verse 22, and verse 25. Ein Sof is not the God of the Bible, but the God of the Jewish mystics and sages. The same mystic sages that Yitzhak Shapiro praises in The Return of the Kosher Pig. Gershom Scholem was the first professor of Jewish mysticism at Hebrew University of Jerusalem and wrote volumes on the subject of Kabbalah. In his book, Kabbalah, Scholem relates that Ein Sof and the Sephirot are not differentiated. There is a unity between the Creator and his creation, a oneness between the emanator and the Sephirot tree that cannot be known to the uninitiated. In Kabbalah, God is immanent within creation. Scholem notes, The Sephirot do not constitute intermediary beings, but are God himself. As a professor of mysticism, Scholem admitted that the system of Kabbalah cannot be explained in a simple and straightforward fashion. In Kabbalah, the Sephirot and its doctrine of divine unity represent a new plane of mystical experience and contemplation that can be fathomed only in the presence of mystical meditation, or meditation, More importantly, Gershom Scholem observed that despite the wide range of traditions used in approaching mystical Judaism, the symbols and ideas of Lurianic Kabbalah have dominated Kabbalistic thinking from the 17th century until recent times. Many Christians today assume that Jesus Christ and the awaited Mashiach of Judaism are one and the same. Therefore, it is important to understand the Kabbalistic doctrines of the fall of man and redemption, as these remain the central messianic themes in rabbinic Jewish thought today. These esoteric ideas were kept hidden for hundreds of years, but are now being released on a global scale according to a prophecy in the Zohar. In the 600th year of the 6th millennium, 5600 equals 1840 Common Era CE, the gates of wisdom above Kabbalah, together with the well springs of wisdom below science, will be opened up, and the world will prepare to usher in the 7th millennium, Zohar Vayera 117a. What was forbidden to investigate and to expound upon the day before now becomes permissible the day after. This is because the gates of human understanding below have been opened up as a result of the steadily increasing divine revelations above. Until the time prior to the dawn of the Industrial Revolution, it was forbidden for Jews to learn the secret side of Torah, unless they understood the whole of the Talmud. Many secrets of Torah are embodied in a volume known as the Zohar, which contain these traditions. The teachings of this book were withheld for 1,000 years with a prophecy that at a time when required it would be revealed. These secrets have been whispered and then articulated more and more loudly by the Rebbes of Lubavitch Chabad. With this information, a Jew can soar into the heavens. So there's a diagram of the Kabbalah tree here. Every true Christian knows and believes that Elohim, the creator in Genesis, is God, and that Jesus Christ is God, the Word made flesh. John chapter 1, verse 14. But as we have seen, one of the secret teachings of Kabbalah is that Ein Sof, through Keter, created the biblical God, Elohim. Again, Ein Sof is the Kabbalistic conception of the God who sits above the Sephirot tree. The following quote explains the hidden infinite aspect of God is called the infinite, Ein Sof, without end. This name was understood as the proper one for the hidden aspect of God. The Sephirot, not Ein Sof, is the God of the Bible. Therefore, a Kabbalist can justifiably claim that Ein Sof is nowhere mentioned in the Bible. The Bible refers only to the Sephirot, the noble God, not the hidden God. Bearing in mind that Yitzhak Shapira says Yeshua is the created Binah in the Sephirot tree of Kabbalah, we will look at the core doctrines of mystical Judaism found within Lurianic Kabbalah. According to Isaac Luria, Ein Sof emanated from himself. 10 spheres are vessels of light called Sephira, singular for Sephirot. The first was Keter, the crown, the androgynous little g God, who is both male and female, also known as Adam Kadmon. Because Keter is both male and female, the right side of the tree represents the masculine potencies of little g God, while the left side represents the feminine aspects of little g God. The remaining 9 Sephira, or spheres, emanate from Keter through a process of mystical sexual union known as Hieros Gamos, the holy union of male and female powers. This synthesis of male and female is esoterically communicated in the union of the two triangles forming the six-pointed star, an occult symbol whose meaning is known and understood by those initiated into the secrets of Kabbalah. Since Keter is androgynous, the first 2 Sephira emit from him. These are Chokmah and Binah, located just below Keter. At this point, It should be clear that Jesus Christ is not Bina, the result of an androgynous sexual act and creations of Ein Sof. In this evolving process, Keter, Chokmah, and Binah form a trinity from which emanates or gives birth to Hesed, male, and from Hesed emanates Gavura, female. The next union, Hieros Gamos, then produces Tiferet. This mystical sexual union of the Sephira continues all the way down to Malchut, also spelled Malchuth, the lowest sphere on the Sephirot tree. Malchut means kingdom, and Shekinah, which is Shekinah, and whereas all of the other Sephira are located in the spirit world, Malchut represents the physical, material world in which we live, and the Shekinah glory or dwelling of God. The word Shekinah is not found in the Bible. In Kabbalah, Shekinah is the final Sephirah to emanate from the Sephirot tree. She is the female counterpart of Ein Sof and the divine presence of God in the earth. She is the daughter conceived in the sacred marriage of Hieros Gamos. She is the gateway of man's ascension to knowledge, the bride and queen of Tiferet. She is the mother who is one with the children of Israel. But something went wrong in this cosmic drama. There was a crisis, a shattering of God's dream, in which man is now left to work and pick up the pieces. The breaking of the vessels, exile and tikkun, the fall and redemption of gods and kings. And he, Jesus, said unto them, I beheld Satan as lightning fall from heaven. Luke chapter 10, verse 18. In Kabbalah, the entire process of creation through emanation is described as a divine lightning flash from Ein Sof, which zigzags through each of the 9 Sephirah all the way down to Malchut, the kingdom of God on earth. These 9 Sephirah are also called worlds. In his book, Kabbalah, Gershom Scholem states that the Sephirot are also depicted as powers and crowns, since they are the celestial crowns of the Holy King. Through the lightning flash of Ein Sof, these crowns rise out of the sea of the abyss, revealing the unity of creation in the number 6 and symbolized in the reflection and union of 2 triangles, the 6-pointed star, from which comes the Egyptian maxim, as above, so below. So I have a diagram of the Kabbalah tree with Ein Sof in the middle, all wrapped in it, this serpent. They call him the divine serpent. Well, I call him the undivine serpent. The Ein Sof, at first, was filling all and then made an absolute concentration into itself, which produced the abyss. The waters are crystalline chaotic sea. Each of these worlds has 10 powers or spheres. Ein Sof established his first point or dot in the divine sea. The face of God, crowned with light, rose over the vast sea and was reflected in the waters thereof. His 2 eyes were manifested, radiating with splendor, darting 2 beams of light which crossed with those of the reflection. The brow of God and his eyes formed a triangle in heaven, and its reflection formed a second triangle in the waters. So was revealed the number 6, being that of universal creation. And I have another diagram here. It says the great symbol of Solomon. So I guess you could look it up. But thou art cast out of thy grave like an abominable branch, and as the raiment, garment of those that are slain, thrust through with a sword that go down to the stones of the pit, as a carcass trodden under feet. Isaiah chapter 14, verse 19. The Kabbalists say that in order to make room for creation, Ein Sof had to contract himself to a single point, making room for the worlds of the Sephirot. This is called Zimzum. As the lightning flash descended, each sphere was formed, one after another, each serving as a vessel for receiving and containing the light. These vessels are also referred to as levushim, the garments of Ein Sof. but the vessels could not contain the divine light, and this resulted in what Kabbalah calls shavira, the breaking of the vessels. As the vessels shattered, the light dispersed and scattered in the form of sparks. Some of these sparks rose back up to their source. Others descended, becoming trapped in matter. Still, others fell down into the abyss and are trapped there still. And because God is in everything and everyone, God himself is in the pit, waiting to be released. This is the Zohar's version of the fall, and since the time of Isaac Luria, has served to explain the diaspora, dispersion, as a cosmic event, not only Israel, but all of humanity. The entire universe and even God himself is in exile, Galut. Once again, Gershom Scholem, late professor of Jewish mysticism, explains, the divine light is no longer in its proper place because the vessels were broken. There is nothing that was not damaged by the breaking. Nothing is in the place appointed for it. Everything is either below or above. All being is in Galut, and this is not all, into the deep abyss. There fell, as a result of the breaking of the vessels, forces of holiness, sparks of divine light. Hence, there is a Galut of the divine itself, of the sparks of the Shekinah. These sparks of holiness are bound in fetters of steel, in the depths of the shells, and yearningly aspire to rise to their source, but cannot avail to do so until they have support. So says Rabbi Chaim Vital, a disciple of Luria. This breaking of the vessels is only the first stage in the fall of Ein Sof's creation. It is the shattering and falling of the androgynous god of Kabbalah into the pit, bound in fetters of steel. Scholem calls this a cosmic picture of Galut, a Galut of the divine itself. This cosmic fall is also the fall of the first Adam, Adam Kadmon. In Kabbalah, Adam Kadmon is the first emanation or creation of Ein Sof. He is Keter, the first sphere on the Sephirot tree. He is also Elohim, the king. He is the crown of the grand man of the Zohar, which is the entire Sephirot tree. He is not the man Adam created in Genesis, but is the primordial man, the celestial Adam, through which all other souls are created. The spheres of the Sephirot are not just worlds, but are also portrayed as powers and crowns. The breaking of the vessels is the fall of the ancient kings, princes, and powers. The Zohar holds the concept of two Adams, the first a divine being who, stepping forth from the highest original darkness, created the second, or earthly Adam in his own image. This is the grand man of the Zohar. The science of equilibrium is the key of occult science. Unbalanced forces perish in the void. So pass the kings of the elder world, the princes of the giants. They have fallen like trees without roots, and their place is found no more. Eliphas Levi, The History of Magic. Wow. So that is the end of chapter 3. So thank you for joining me, and have a good night.